going on, fam? This is your brother Zion. Listen, I just had an epiphany, and just doing a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting. You know, as I talk to youth, you know, be it in my neighborhood, youth that I work with, in several reentry programs, men that I work with in reentry programs, men and women that's been incarcerated. There's a commonality with those who have been literally incarcerated and those who haven't, yet they have. And what I mean by that is that you may not know anyone who has been incarcerated. I doubt that very seriously. You may not have been incarcerated, but in many regards, all of us have been locked up to one degree or another, if not literally. How about emotionally, mentally, financially, relationally, socially, otherwise? But the epiphany is, what if an individual, whether he or she are innocent or guilty of the crime, they're in prison, and they have a max date, a minimum and a max date. The max date is pretty much time served. You got to go. Whether it's 24 months, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc., etc. But once you hit that max date, time served, you got to go, and we've got to make room for somebody to take your bed, to take your spot. What if that individual, at the very day and the moment of time served, refused to leave the prison, refused to leave that jail? They insist on remaining incarcerated. What if they committed the crime just to have more time? We would think that's crazy. That's ludicrous. Who really does that in their right mind? When it's time for you to go, it's time for you to go. Why are you staying in prison? Oftentimes, this is what we do, especially as men. When we have been in emotional prisons, spiritual prisons, psychological prisons, oftentimes, when we've reached a max date, when it's time for us to leave out of that prison of pain and brokenness, we refuse to leave. We refuse to experience the freedom that God has given us. We refuse to step into a place beyond brokenness, into a place of wholeness. We refuse to step out of our past into our future. We refuse to step into a place of healing. And it's almost like refusing to leave prison, remaining in a prison of pain. And so it not only affects us, but it affects those who love us. And oftentimes it leaves them helpless and hopeless, because one who has received a max date, a prison release, now he or she remains inside of a prison now that wants to spit him out or spit her out. It's time for you to go. But oftentimes we stretch our time by not allowing healing to take place in our hearts and in our minds. So when it's time released, it's time for us to go, to get out of that emotional prison, to step outside of that past pain and beyond that past pain and brokenness and regret and shame and anger and rage and resentment and regret, remaining in the prison long after your time has been served. Peace and blessings. Love you to life.